This race looks like it's going to be all rainy, which is exactly like the last Grand Prix at this track I did back in F1 2011. And I didn't do so well in that, so... oh boy.
Oh boy!
Fortunately, I only failed one of, looks like 5 different upgrades I had. But my car is no longer the worst in the grid overall. Hello YouTubers and welcome aboard. I am Noob5yx and welcome back to F1 2018 Career Mode. We're into the double digits now, it's part 10. However, despite my optimism with improving the car a little bit and not being the worst on the grid anymore, we're in for a pretty tough race. On the races I've done at Silverstone previously, it's never been easy. But we'll give it our best shot here. The weekend's going to be all wet weather except for Free Practice 3 and qualifying, which we're right on board for now. Qualifying 3 on board for the lap of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit through the front straightaway and the first complex of corners here. Hard braking into this one to the right. We'll head back to the left here after another set of hard braking. Long left-hander here, probably a double left-hander actually, onto either the Hangar Straight or the Wellington Straight. My trivia with Silverstone names is not the greatest. But anyway, nice passing opportunity down here as we head into this corner. Run a bit wide. That's been happening a little bit. It'll be worse once the wet weather comes in, probably. But here we go. Long right-hander. Old pit entrance there on the right. And the old start-finish straightaway that we are on to just now. The corner up to the right here. There we are. You can take that just about full on. Just about flat out in the dry weather. In the wet, it's a bit more tricky. You got to apply a little bit of brakes. Here, the classic Silverstone S's, the inspiration for a lot of corners on other circuits. You can sometimes go flat out through here with the current cars, but I lifted a little bit there. A bit timid with the Williams. Despite the upgrades, the performance is still not ideal, but we're making it work as we come down the second of the 2 straightaways. Another hard right-hander. This is a part of the complex of corners, or really just all the corners in general in Silverstone that make it such a heavy track for wear on the tires. Last couple corners here. Still running a little wide, but there we are onto the start-finish straightaway, and that's us through Q1 quite easily. I have upped the difficulty some more since the last race, but we are still looking fairly good, I think, in terms of the AI against us. We're delayed getting into Q2 a little bit because of a fuel system failure, but once we are there, we look good. That's easily through Q2 as well, in 6th position. And here we are in Q3, and we're looking pretty good. That's the only representative time we set, in 3rd place at the time. And here we are. With some others improving later on in the session, we dropped down to 7th. I'm quite happy with that, though. We're still doing quite well in terms of qualifying, and it's just time to see if we can make it come good in the race. And I know it'll be tricky, because wet weather is hard to pass in. Let's see.
The pain of parting is nothing to the joy of meeting again. And how joyous indeed it is to be back at Silverstone once more for the British Grand Prix. The queues to get in this morning extended miles back down the A43, such is the enthusiasm for Formula One in this country. Silverstone circuit then. It's 3.6 miles long and has a total of 18 corners. And of course, is no stranger to the rain. There won't be any DRS available in these conditions, but the Wellington and Hangar Straights are still good opportunities to tuck into the slipstream and make a pass. We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and starting alongside him P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Iceman, Alonso, Perez, Grosjean and Nico Hülkenberg. Ricciardo, Raikkonen. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Kevin Magnussen and Ocon, Leclerc, Van Dorn, Lance Stroll and Marcus Ericsson. Hartley and Pierre Gasly rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Okay, this is the team's home race. We're all relying on you to impress today.
So no pressure on me whatsoever then. Well, we're looking here at what we want to do in terms of strategy. I'm thinking we're going to increase the load of fuel just a little bit. The wet weather will bog us down a little, so I might want to run in rich revs a little bit more. Here we go to the start. 5 red lights at the Silverstone Grand Prix, and away we go. The wet weather has hampered everyone's start a little bit, but I'm still a little slow compared to Fernando Alonso behind me, who's coming up my outside. Into the first corner, though. A little bit of contact, I think, but we are all right. A little narrow there. The wet weather is very, very tricky, even on these full wet weather tires. This isn't quite like the French Grand Prix that was also full wet weather, because I still had full traction control on then. Because I don't have full traction control on now, it's going to be a little bit more tricky to make this work. I'm going to have to rely a lot more on my own finesse than on the game keeping me on the circuit. Following Carlos Sainz down the first straightaway into one of the heavy braking zones here. Sergio Perez has gotten past Fernando Alonso behind me and looks like will be the one applying early pressure to me. But we've got to stick on the racing line, hold it together as much as we can. Racing line is awfully tricky to stay on, though, with the slippery surface. Back to the strategy briefly, I just went for the 2-stop because I feel like the tires aren't going to wear too much at this point. I ended up being proved wrong in the race a little bit, as we'll see, but for the time it seemed like the right thing to do, just to reduce the time in the pits, because the Silverstone pit lane is very, very long, and you lose a lot of time once you get into the pits here. Trying to stick it through the S's, holding it together a little bit, still slippery. We're a bit narrow coming off the end of that corner, off the racing line a little bit, but Perez didn't get a good enough launch to fully make an attempt of it, even though he tries around the outside, but around the outside there is not quite going to work for me. I've still got the power, I've still got the ability to pass him back, and we're still in 6th position. I'd like to hold on to this position if possible. I'd like to be able to pass people if possible, but Sainz looks like he's already starting to slip away. I'll need to be awfully consistent if I want to be able to pass anyone here. There we are again with the slippery surface coming off of that corner. We slide a bit narrow onto the front straightaway. The wet weather likes to throw you around quite a lot. On lap 3, though, we were able to get onto this straight again, go a little wide, but not terribly. Sergio Perez is still there behind us looking to make an attack. He's not quite in position yet, but he's much more consistent than I am. If he's able to keep doing that, he'll set himself up naturally. He's still right there, and Fernando Alonso not far behind. I really don't want to get passed by 2 of them at once. Jeff's telling me that there's a problem with my engine, potentially. It's a little worn, but on the indicator it's not too worn. It's only at 53%, which isn't too much. And besides, on this circuit, power is not a huge thing, especially in the wet weather, I should say. It's not a huge thing. But moving on then, later in lap 3, moments after I check the engine, Sergio Perez has found himself an opportunity as I run a bit narrow in the slippery section. He's looking at me quite a lot, quite aggressively, as again I come off narrow and don't get a great exit out of those corners. He's trying up the outside again, even though I'm going to squeeze him off naturally in that section. He's still trying for it. I'm able to hold him off once more, but that pressure he's putting on me there, I've been forced into a mistake by him, and then he brakes a little early into the following corner for good measure, so I touched the back of him just a little bit. Fortunately, there's no visible damage to the front wing, so we're able to continue on quite well. But that's just about to set the pattern, though. There's other cars behind me looking to apply pressure, as Fernando Alonso now is right there on my tail. He's looking to make a pass next, and I've got to hold him off as long as possible. But there he is. You see, already applying pressure. On lap 6, though, we've had a sloppy exit out of the S's again. We're on wide, way wide onto the grass, and there's Fernando Alonso, Nico Hülkenberg, and Daniel Ricciardo, all past me at once. Major, major slip up there, and it's cost me 3 places. All those cars seem to be better in the wet weather than I am anyway. It might have been just a matter of time, but if I'd been able to hold them off a little bit, it would have been easier for me to hold position later on in the race, even just to hold them up a little bit. A couple laps later, Kimi Räikkönen, who started down the field from a penalty, has also passed me. No surprises there. Trying to hold it together, because the next person behind us is Romain Grosjean. I'd like to not lose the position, but again, mistakes being made as we run narrow out of the S's. A little bit of contact even from Grosjean as he comes past me out of the following straightaway. We probably, though, shouldn't be racing into this section because there's yellow flags being waved. Sebastian Vettel is actually off ahead of us. He's actually had some sort of failure, either engine or mechanical of some kind. That's an awful shame for him. He was leading the championship, and now having not scored any points at all because of this DNF, he's actually going to lose out pretty much no matter what happens with the Mercedes, because they are both well up the road in good positions. It'll all be up to Raikkonen now to win points for Ferrari, and he's still just ahead of me in 9th. We can't be worrying about the top of the championship leaderboards now. It's still our own race to contend with, as this time Grosjean tries again. Out of that last straightaway is not a good section for me. And there he is past us. Soon, though, it's time to put our strategy into effect and get off these tires. I said that they probably wouldn't wear too much, but by this point I was starting to feel it. So we're into the long pit lane at Silverstone. Quick stop, though, from Williams, as always, though. We're out just behind Charles Leclerc, or excuse me, out just ahead of Charles Leclerc, who came in after us and just passed us up. There's a Toro Rosso in as well, and Grosjean just ahead of us there, heading up the ramp out of the pit lane. Safety car sitting there. It's amazing almost that we haven't had a safety car come out in this race. The wet weather has not caught as many people out as I expected it would. I was sort of counting on the safety car a little bit, almost hoping that people would be out of the race, more people out than just Sebastian Vettel, so that the safety car would come out and would allow me the chance for a cheap pit stop, fresh tires, and the ability to continue on in the race, or maybe even just the option to have track position while others pitted for fresh tires. Either way, it hasn't happened. But as we cycle through the pits, past the pits on the next lap, we find that Kevin Magnussen is actually a long ways behind us. It's good for us. He's stuck in a train of cars, including Charles Leclerc, Esteban Ocon, and Stoffel Van Dorn. So I don't think he's going to be able to pass us. He's not going to be able to challenge us. And just to confirm my suspicions...
Okay, some information on Magnussen. They have some kind of mechanical problem.
Ha! So Magnussen's unlucky streak continues. Unfortunate for him, but fortunate for us, as that's what we need. Much later into the race, it's lap 24 though. It's a sprint to the end now. There's only 2 cars in contention for what I want, and that's I'm just trying to stay in 11th place at the moment. Grosjean is just a little bit too far up the road for me to effectively challenge him in the last 2-3 laps. However, Charles Leclerc in the Sauber behind me, showing the pace, potentially, of a very impressive driver in the future. And no wonder he's actually been promoted to Ferrari in real life. But he's challenging me here on the last couple laps, so it's a sprint race between the two of us. I'm not going to get any points for holding on to 11th, but I would like to hold on to it anyway, just potentially prove that I can drive defensively, effectively. So, here we go. We need to hold it together, we need to be consistent. As long as we can do that, we can beat him to the line. And that's all I want at this point. But the weather is not improving. It's been this same kind of wet all race. And then you can see puddles there on the sides of the track. It's not fun here if you go offline. You slide around a lot more. Even on the line is not the best. As you can see, we're running wide here through the S's. Still coming out a bit narrow, as it likes to throw me off on that section. I don't know why that section in particular is so awful for me, but there's not much I can do about it at this point. Leclerc is still there behind me. He's not making a huge challenge of it right now, but he is still there, constantly on my tail, trying to, just force me into some kind of mistake through just the pressure of him being so close so consistently. Through the final couple corners and on to the beginning of the second to last lap here, it looks like. Unless Grosjean, like I said, unless Grosjean makes a mistake, I'm not going to be able to catch him for points. I just want to hold on to this so that I can beat Leclerc, so that I can salvage a little something from this race. I've got to stick on the racing line, as I said, no mistakes. But that's really challenging. You can see I'm still running wide. I may have bitten off a bit more than I can chew, upping the difficulty as much as I did. Running wide there onto the runoff area just a bit. Onto the front straightaway, running through the puddle section here, off the line. Hard on the brakes into the corner. Got to be careful not to slide. Even coming down into the braking zones would be a very nasty place to get flat spots on the tires. Lewis Hamilton, though, still putting in fastest laps ahead of us, and actually not too far behind, lapping us at this point. But we're not at risk of being lapped, I don't think, with only 2 laps remaining. But Leclerc, though, is very much a threat now. There he is behind us as we head into the S's section. Here's where I need to make sure I'm consistent. Here's where I need to make sure I don't make mistakes. We come in here looking good so far, but we run a little wide. That's it. That's all the opportunity Leclerc needs. There he is alongside us, and he pushes us narrow a little bit, and he's got us. So that was my last goal for the Silverstone Grand Prix. Down the drain a little bit, it looks like. That Sauber has got past us, so it looks like it's not going to be any points for Williams today either. After that disaster in Austria in the last race with the crash with Verstappen, I was hoping to have a much better result this time, especially considering this is Williams' home Grand Prix in England. But looks like it's not to be, unfortunately. On the last couple of laps, on the last lap and a half there, basically, there's not really time to catch Charles Leclerc. So disappointing weekend for us, unfortunately, as we head to the line. Looks like it's going to be 12th place, no points in England.
Alright, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
And now it's time to wind down and celebrate after that fantastic Grand Prix. Here they come, your top three, out onto the podium.
Valtteri Bottas then, with another win, beating out his teammate Lewis Hamilton at Hamilton's home Grand Prix. Excellent race, though, from both Mercedes, who win a 1-2. That'll put them back in the lead of the Constructors' Championship as well, taking it back from Ferrari. Bottas' win also will put him back at top of the Drivers' Championship as well, and there Daniel Ricciardo joining, winning good points for Red Bull, and securing his position ahead of his teammate Verstappen after the crash last time. Looking like he's going to be the senior driver for the season for Red Bull. Well, looks like we're going to have to work harder still. We've still got some upgrade points to spend. We're going to have to get those on the car ASAP. We need some upgrades and just have to hope, I guess, that the next Grand Prix is dry weather. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, YouTubers. Next race, I'll get some points for us, don't you worry. I promise it'll be a much more interesting race to watch as we move to the German Grand Prix.